Here are 6 Dynasty Cloggers that you need to trade away before your deadline.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Pick app. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. On today's show, we're going to take a look at 6 different players that are currently clogging up your dynasty rosters, assuming you are in a rebuild. And you need to trade these players away before your deadline. Okay, let's start at the running back position because this is probably the easiest one to identify. If you are clearly not contending for the 2024 season, which running backs should you try to trade away right now?
Let's start with Alvin Kamara, who has pretty much been on, I feel like, this rendition of this episode for, I don't know, like every season over the past 5 years. Like this man just won't quit. But he's in a very good spot right now. Just got an extension to keep him with the New Orleans Saints, presumably for the remainder of his career. 29 years old. He's playing really good football. Let's, not stunning by any stretch of the imagination, but it's, his most efficient season as a runner, since 2020, averaging 4.3 yards per carry. You'll take that. 71.5 rushing yards per game. That's actually a career high average for him. Second highest rush attempts per game. And guess what? It's working. He's getting stuff done on the ground. It's his third highest successful rush rate percentage of his career. And I don't know, this might actually be the first season of his career he actually tops 1,000 rushing yards, which is crazy. But he's doing all these things right. So why sell? Because he's a 29-year-old running back in an organization that's, I think, headed for a massive rebuild.
And he's playing really well right now. So if the goal is to not contend, I don't want to say tank, but to not contend, it makes sense to try to trade him away. Right now, okay, on the season, he's the second highest scoring running back in fantasy football, or at least in PPR leagues. So I think you can get a pretty nice haul for him. Now, we've seen some trades over the last couple of days that include like a young receiver in a second round pick for Jameson Williams in a second round pick. I actually think you can do better than that. I think if you go to the right dynasty manager, I think you can maybe get a better player than Jameson Williams. But again, if your goal is to rebuild, Alvin Kamara isn't going to help you. Trade him away now before he starts racking up more points as the season goes on.
His lowest finish of the entire season, RB 33 in full PPR scoring formats. He's finished as an RB1 most weeks, has 3 top 5 finishes on the year. And here's like another nugget. And maybe this is me just holding on hope for my good guy, Kendre Miller. But there were some interesting reports that came out before, just after Dennis Allen was fired, that Kendre Miller is actually healthy. If you'll remember, Kendre Miller's second year running back just placed on injured reserve right before Dennis Allen's tenure came to a close. Apparently he's actually healthy. And that was a source of discontent within the organization, who it seems wanted to see Kendre Miller get some touches. And Kendre Miller had a meeting with the coaching staff. They said, look, we want wheels up once you're literally just cleared to come back from IR, which is a pointless IR stint, apparently. I kind of want to get out right now before we see what Kendre Miller and see what them getting Kendre Miller work looks like, because we knew all along Dennis Allen had some sort of inner heart hatred for
Some kind of
Kendra Miller.
vendetta towards Kendra Miller. Like it was clear, right?
It was so clear. So like the fact that he apparently just rage placed him on IR was, it seemed like that caused a bit of a stir in the organization. And I think if that storyline is to be believed, that they want to see what they have in their former third round pick. So like I would love to offload Alvin Kamara right now while he's performing before we see Kendra Miller hopefully get some work. And Kendra Miller coming out of TCU, a back that I really enjoyed watching play football. Thinks he offers a lot when he's actually healthy, great contact balance, has a nose for the end zone, like can do a lot of things right. So yeah, I want to get out from Alvin Kamara while I can.
So again, this is all with the mindset that you are rebuilding and you're not trying to win right now. I'm going to give you some running backs that are currently being drafted around Alvin Kamara. You tell me if you would trade him straight up. Alvin Kamara for Jonathan Brooks.
Easily.
Okay.
Jonathan Brooks.
Alvin Kamara for Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I'll take Irving.
Okay. Alvin Kamara for Trey Benson.
Oh, easily.
Okay. Alvin Kamara for Chase Brown.
Yes.
Okay. I think you can get more because Alvin Kamara is playing so well, but I think that's probably the last few names. Like, I don't think you're trading Alvin Kamara for Tajay Spears or Blake Corum or anybody like that, correct?
No, I think that might be lowballing yourself. I think he's more to the contending roster than that. So yeah, I think you can hold out for more, or even look for one of these interpositional trades that you can, get a wide receiver for a running back that maybe,
Let's talk about Tony Pollard, who is currently a top 20 running back this season. Signed a long-term extension with the Titans in 2024. He's averaging about, 13, 14 points a game this year. Very modest numbers. I mean, I think if you have him as your RB2, you're happy. But if you're rebuilding, this isn't the type of player that you want on your roster. Kate, what would you be willing to trade Tony Pollard away for? Would somebody like Braylon Allen be what you're looking for here?
I think that feels probably a little bit low for just the amount of value that I think Tony Pollard could have. And let's be clear, I don't necessarily know that you should trade him this week. I think maybe after week 11 would be a good time, seeing how he does it. He was a little banged up after an extended, workload. Tajay Spears was out. So they made a concerted effort to get Tajay Spears some extra work. So I don't think this is maybe necessarily the right time. But like if I could do Tony Pollard for a Trey Benson, let's say, or a DeAndre Swift, honestly, 25 years old, playing really good football on a bad organization. People are kind of freaking out there. I just trust the longevity of DeAndre Swift a little bit better. I think that's probably like the right range. Maybe a Ramondre Stevenson type who,
let me give you another one.
Like 26, but like doesn't have a ton of work on his body through the initial course of his career and just got a nice contract extension. Like maybe one of these guys that I just trust a little bit more right now.
All right, let me give you another one. Again, we're going to go with the theme of younger running backs. What about Tank Bigsby, straight up?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. How about Blake Corum?
I still think it feels a little bit low, but I think maybe Blake Corum plus a pick.
Okay. I think you're right. That's what I would be asking for in a trade. It's like, hey, or maybe a pick swap. Like, hey, I'm going to give you Tony Pollard in my third. You give me Blake Corum in your second. Those are the types of moves that I would be trying to make if I'm rebuilding in my dynasty league, because now I get a young running back and I get a better pick to help me rebuild my roster. I think those are the kind of moves that we're looking at today. Okay, let's move over to wide receivers, because I actually think there's more of these roster cloggers at wide receiver than there are at running back. Let's talk about Deebo Samuel and Calvin Ridley next. This episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours and hours. Use it to make yourself wiser and smarter. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, the rise and fall of the Roman Republic, and so much more. I've taken a couple of these classes. There's a Charles Dickens class, which is really fun. The best part is you just log on your phone. You can listen. You can watch the video. You can get additional readings, quizzes, discussions, whatever you would like. It's so easy to do it on your own pace. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. Hillsdale.edu/lockedon. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Listen, week 11 is a ridiculously good slate. We've got awesome games starting on Thursday night with Washington, Philadelphia, all the way through Sunday afternoon with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo. Then we've got a fun night game between the Bengals and Chargers. Great week to join FanDuel. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are breaking down 6 players who are currently Dynasty roster cloggers that you need to trade away before your league's deadline. And Kate, let's move over to the wide receiver position, because I think somebody like Deebo Samuel, who's posting decent numbers when he's healthy, is actually somebody that's worth trading away now before we get to the 2025 offseason.
I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in general right now surrounding Deebo Samuel. What does his future with the 49ers organization look like? I don't really know, because you look at the contract situation, you look at the moves they've made. They brought back Juwan Jennings on a 3-year deal, a nice 3-year deal, and we're seeing him perform as an X receiver. We saw him perform as a power slot. Like, we're seeing versatility from him that I don't necessarily knew that they knew he had, right? Like, then you look at Ricky Pearsall, already showing some really exciting flashes. We know he's a great athlete, offers a ton. There are a lot of dynamic pieces here in this offense that, from a contract situation, Deebo's starting to feel like the odd man out. Now, I think the bigger question mark about Deebo is not really like the skill set, what he's capable of doing, but it's, if Deebo is not a fixture of this 49ers offense, what does Deebo Samuel look like? And it's that question that's giving me pause for his overall future in Dynasty, that, like, if I can offload him right now while he is a San Francisco 49er being coached by Kyle Shanahan, with Brock Purdy at quarterback and an ideal set of circumstances to score a lot of fantasy points, maybe it's best to move on right now from this aging asset who's had some health issues, who, is utilized a lot in the run game, which doesn't help a lot of those health issues there. Like, this might be the time to dip.
I agree. This offense has a lot of moving pieces, right? We'll see. I mean, Christian McCaffrey got a new contract extension. You got to assume that he's going to be back in 2025. There's also this shout out to Brian Peacock from Locked On 49ers. He's been on this about McCaffrey for a while, that the plan for him is, as he gets older, is to start transitioning him to more of a slot receiver than a running back to kind of take some of the wear and tear off of his body. And if that's the case, I don't really see the need for Deebo on this team, right? Because you can do a lot of the same things with McCaffrey that you can do as Deebo. I wouldn't be surprised if 2025 is the last season for Deebo with the 49ers. Pearsall is going to be there. Ayuk just signed a contract extending. Jennings has proven to be a really good, reliable receiver, Kate. And I do think Deebo is going to have value in the NFL. And I think he's going to have value in your dynasty league. So, yeah, if you can flip him for a young receiver who maybe isn't producing right now, I think that's fair. I want to give you some receivers that are being drafted at least around where he is. And you tell me what you think. Would you flip Deebo Samuel for Tank Dell straight up?
Easily, yes.
Okay. Let's keep going. How about Deebo Samuel for Jameson Williams?
Jameson Williams is a trickier one for me. Just like that's probably more of a personal hesitation, given his some of the off the field issues. Availability is kind of everything in this league, so I'll probably say no on Jameson Williams.
Okay. What about? I'm looking at some others. What about Khalil Shakir?
I'll probably stick with Deebo. I think like the value of Deebo and Tank Dell feels about right. If you can even package Deebo in a later round pick to move up in terms of like a quality wide receiver, a Ladd McConkey, for example, 23 years old on his rookie deal with a top tier NFL quarterback. Like, if you can get a move like that done, I don't even mind giving up an extra later round pick in terms of, I know that's usually counterintuitive to a rebuild, but like, I kind of like the direction of that move. How about Deebo straight up for Xavier Worthy?
Oh, yes, 100%. 100%.
Okay.
And you know that
I think
you know how much I
that's
love
a deal you
Xavier
could
Worthy.
probably get done right now, given the struggles that Xavier Worthy is having right now.
Yes. I would do that one without even thinking twice. I'd be like, did they make a mistake sending me the offer? So I do think Deebo still has value. Let's talk about another receiver who's been really good over the last couple of weeks, and that's Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. 3 straight kind of boom weeks for him. One of those with Will Levis, who returned last week. Now, Calvin Ridley is somebody who signed a big contract extension this offseason. He's 29, so he's right on that age of that dynasty managers hate. Right, Leo DiCaprio wouldn't even look at him. Kate, let's what receivers would you consider moving away or moving Calvin Ridley for?
Oh gosh, I'm going to be honest with the age factor of Calvin Ridley, with the questions of quarterback, because like let's be real, I know that their quarterback situation isn't great right now. But what you do have in general is a pretty reckless passer. And I'm sorry, fantasy football loves them a reckless passer. Like, there's a reason everybody was clamoring for Jameis Winston to get the starting job for the sake of our fantasy rosters here. So, like Will Levis, he has had a propensity for just chucking up a deep ball, hasn't always been a good decision. He has 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on pass attempts of 20 plus yards down the field. Like, it's not great, but like it is good because it gives you these high value propositions for the receiving assets. And if they figure out an answer at quarterback, because I don't think it's Will Levis, like you take away some of those high value targets. If they get some more depth around Calvin Ridley, is there, and you can probably speak more to the contract situation, like, is there a circumstance where like, okay, they had DeAndre Hopkins, they're like, all right, DeAndre Hopkins, like he's on the older side, let's get him to a team where he might be in a position to win now. Like Calvin Ridley, he's going to turn 30 years old in the coming month. Is there a way that his contract could work out that like they might just say, all right, we're not close enough to contending, and they move on?
I doubt it. He's got so much guaranteed money that I highly doubt that he gets moved. I want to give you some recent trades, Kate, because I do think these are interesting to me. Calvin Ridley for a 2025 second and 2025 third. I would do that trade in a heartbeat right now if I'm rebuilding and I have Calvin Ridley on my roster. I'm assuming you would as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
30-year-old wide receiver. If I can, possibly get 2 young assets in return, let's do it.
Okay. Calvin Ridley for how about a couple of hurt guys? Now, this one's really interesting. I like this strategy. We saw this trade happen 2 days ago. Calvin Ridley for Rashid Shaheed and Christian Kirk. What's interesting about that trade is neither of those receivers are going to help you this year because they're out for the year, but I do think they could have some value next year. That's a fascinating one.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm not usually a big fan of trading for injured guys, but again, hopefully this is, one of those circumstances that, like, if you assume both of these guys make a full recovery, Rashid Shaheed absolutely playing out of his mind prior to his injury. Christian Kirk, I think everybody had expected the Jaguars to move on and he might find some greener pastures elsewhere in a less crowded situation. Like,
Mhm.
you can easily write the story for either of those 2 wide receivers to have a pretty solid bounce back season in 2025.
2 more quick ones I want to run through. Straight up wide receiver trade. So Calvin Ridley for AD Mitchell. I love that one. Get younger. Now that offense is not great right now, especially with Anthony Richardson coming back, but I would do that trade all day.
That one I'm a little less excited about, but
Okay. I got another one for you that you might be George
it's
Juiced
kind of
about.
just about the moves. Like,
Okay.
it's about the moves, not necessarily always.
How about Calvin Ridley for Cedric Tillman straight up?
Hmm.
I would do that one as well.
I like that. Yeah, I really like that.
All right, let's talk about some quarterbacks and tight ends that are currently clogging your roster that you need to move away from right now. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. It's also the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Pick app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins. Check it out wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. All right, Kate, let's talk about a quarterback that you need to move on from. Which quarterback is currently clogging your dynasty rosters?
It's got to be Sam Darnold. Now,
Yeah.
I don't even know if this is like the right time to sell because I feel like we're starting to see the smoke and mirrors just kind of start to disintegrate here around Sam Darnold, just making, more of those mistakes. Hasn't been, for a guy who had 2 top 5 weekly finishes in the first 4 weeks, just hasn't been that same guy, right? Like, he's been more of that mid-range QB2. But I do think even if you're selling him as a mid-end QB2 in a super flex format or a 2 QB league, you're still getting something out of Sam Darnold that I don't like. Sam Darnold, we know he's going to be the quarterback rest of season, barring injury.
Correct.
Is there a world where you're really foreseeing him to hold value beyond the 2024 season? I don't think so.
I mean, Do I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in 2025? I do. I actually think he's going to get a pretty good deal, Kate. There's just no situation in the league where you're going to tell me he's going to go into that's going to be more favorable than what he is right now. Like Minnesota's got playmakers for days. They've got one of the best offensive minds in Kevin O'Connell. They play in a dome. Like I like Sam Darnold, but if he is the starting quarterback for you name the team, the Jets, the Raiders, the Steelers, I don't love the potential of his fantasy value. So could you get out now? Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I've found interesting, Kate, is there have been some fascinating trades with regarding Sam Darnold. All of these are in super flex leagues where quarterback is a premium. But again, last 2 days, Sam Darnold for Trevor Lawrence straight up.
That's crazy.
But see, that to me, that's somebody that's like, hey, I'm going for it now. Trevor Lawrence might be out for the remainder of the year. Give me
Yeah.
Sam Darnold. Another one, Sam Darnold for Dak Prescott, straight up.
That's wild. These are real trades?
These are real trades on Dynasty League football. This guy, Drumstick Fury, sends it to LLCC.
Big fan.
Yeah.
Drumstick Fury. Yeah.
But again, this is the perfect type of trade if you are tanking, right? Maybe the Dak Prescott owner or manager was contending. He needs another quarterback. Sam Darnold's putting up big numbers. You take on Dak, he's going to help you tank this year. I don't mind it.
I mean, yeah, that's again, like sometimes like we can get so caught up on like trade player X for player Y. Sometimes I think trade advice just needs to be as simple as like, okay, you're not contending. You don't need QB Sam Darnold rest of season. Find someone who does
Who needs
need
it?
Sam Darnold rest of season and see what they have.
Right.
Because like if they are in a position where they have lost a Trevor Lawrence, a Dak Prescott, like that value suddenly goes far beyond, Sam Darnold's perceived QB2 value rest of season. Like he is
One
worth
more.
more to these teams. And that's why assessing your individual league's trade market is so important.
One more. Again, super flex league. Sam Darnold for Brandon Ayuk, straight up. Same thought process of like, hey, Ayuk's not going to help me, but I know when he comes back, he's somebody I'm going to play every single week. I think that one's interesting. Okay, what about a tight end? What is there a tight end out there that's clogging your dynasty rosters?
I mean, is it Travis Kelce?
Yeah, I mean,
Is it Travis Kelce?
if you have Travis Kelce on your team and you're not contending, you
What
probably
are you
have
doing?
already. I'm saying you probably have already traded him by now. But there's a chance that you are 5-5 after 10 games, and it's just clear that you're not going to be contending. I do think you can still get enough from Travis Kelce, who's been really good over the last couple of weeks. I still think he has trade value.
I mean, Marcus, he has been, and like this kind of shut me all the way up. Now, I still think it would be different if we had Rashee Rice in the mix,
I
if we
agree.
had, Marquise Brown. Like we were very big on offloading Travis Kelce ahead of this season. But I mean, with those injuries, with the circumstances in play right now, Kelce has been a top 5 fantasy tight end in 5 of his last 6 games.
Exactly.
5 of his last 6 games. Like, that is inherently valuable to any contending roster, but that is not going to keep you in a position of being able to start your rebuild, tank, whatever you want to call it.
And I'll also say that if you have some dynasty managers in your league that are in the top 2, 3 in scoring, and they're just going for it this year, try to sell Travis Kelce even as an upgrade. Maybe they have Dalton Kincaid, who's banged up. Maybe they have Jake Ferguson, who's now without a starting quarterback, and there's just no upside there. Kate, we have seen multiple trades from Dynasty League football over the last couple of days. Travis Kelce for a 2025 or 2026 first round pick. You've got to assume those are all from teams that know they're going to be drafting 10, 11, 12. Don't be afraid to send out that offer if you are in a position where you know you're not competing and you need to rebuild.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Make sure you check out the channel on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Machuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. We'll be back on Friday to break it all down.